What's good, everybody? Welcome in to The Early Edge, and it's hard to believe, but we have arrived. Week 5 NFL Mega Preview. We are just about a quarter of a way through a 17-game season, and so far, boy, it's been unpredictable and then still predictable as San Francisco, Philadelphia, and Kansas City off to really good starts through the first 4 weeks. But we have a full slate except for 4 teams starting their byes this week, and I bet they are very happy about that. The Browns, Chargers, Seahawks, and Bucks will not be in action this week. So with all that being said, I've got 2 of the best NFL minds in the business at my disposal every single Tuesday. If you're watching live, thank you very much. Please hit that like button for me. It's very, very important to the show. RJ White, the stoic one, is here. The maestro, Larry Hartstein, is here. Quickly, gentlemen, after all the banana land that we saw this past weekend, RJ, let me start with you. What was the most craziest thing that you saw this weekend from some of these games?
Denver Broncos won a game. That's pretty crazy. I didn't know that was going to happen just based on how they've been playing. So kudos to them. It's NFL. You're going to get some crazy stuff happening. I think we're all kind of shocked how great the Houston Texans are playing right now. And just they look like they could be the best team in the division, considering Jacksonville hasn't really got off on a hot start there. So really impressive to see them get, especially with all the injuries on the offensive line, to get going pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think 2 of the 3 rookie quarterbacks playing great. Richardson played good for the Colts, and I think C.J. Stroud's been the biggest surprise in the league so far. Maestro, what about you?
I think it would have to be Brandon Staley going for it in his own territory again after it almost cost him the week before, and then it almost cost him again. I mean, this time he wasn't on the 20. I think he was on the 35, but still they had to sweat another one out.
That was the topic, Maestro, of my segment every week called What Are You Doing? If you haven't seen it, go to my Instagram page or go to my Twitter page. Could not believe that they won another game the way Brandon Staley coaches that team. It's crazy to me. All right, but we've got to look forward. So, gentlemen, let's get it going. We go through every single game Thursday, Sunday, and also Monday night. Or if you guys want, we could just go straight to Sunday because this week, the Thursday night game, Bears, Commanders. Now, Washington played really, really well against Philadelphia, taking them to overtime. They're favored by 6.5. Very important. That's under 7 currently, Maestro. Total 44.5. And you like a side in this game, but maybe not the side everybody would think. Start us off.
Yeah, this opened at 4.5, and then after how well the Commanders played, it got up 5.5, 6.5, and it did touch 7, which is when I locked it in on SportsLine and personally played it at -115. And you can still buy it up to 7 with some juice. And I know it's hard to back the worst team, maybe the worst team in football, the worst defense aside from the Broncos, maybe the worst coaching staff, but they still have talent. They still have Justin Fields, who played an amazing game offensively. And it wasn't just, how bad Denver was. He did play great football. And it offends me to see the Commanders laying this many points. I mean, they've given up 30-plus points in 3 straight games. And you still have a very young quarterback in Sam Howell. There's just no way, in my mind, that they should be laying a full touchdown. And the analytics guru, Cleve TA, a great follow on Twitter, pointed out the Commanders coming off an overtime game. The defense was on the field for nearly 80 plays. And you can go back the last 24 times a team played an overtime game on Sunday and had to have a quick turnaround and play on a Thursday. They are 3-21 against the spread.
Wow. Say that number again.
3-21 against the spread when you play overtime and your opponent does not play overtime, and then you have to come back on a short week and play again Thursday.
And all those boxes are checked. Love that. That may be the stat of the week. I'm absolutely stealing that for any show we use later in the week. I love it. And for Primetime Early Edge. RJ, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, we now have 4 weeks of data, so I'm going to go a little more data heavy than I have been the first few weeks when we're just kind of judging off of preconceived notions and what we see over these limited sample sizes against certain matchups. So looked in this one, it was a nice rebound for Washington's offense against Philly, but the defense is still struggling. The Washington offense is 9th in yards per rush, but just 24th in yards per pass, and Chicago's defense has been good versus the run. So this is a matchup that would seem to help the Chicago defense. We see how banged up they are on the secondary side. maybe Washington can exploit that a little and throw a little more. But you would have thought Denver could do that too, and they got down to 24-7 and had to rally back in that game, helped by a fumble recovery. So Chicago actually held up surprisingly well last week. Washington's offense last in sack rate, but Chicago's defense can't really generate pressure. So I don't know if that's going to come back to bite them. Chicago's offense 5th in yards per rush, while Washington's defense 26 in that same category. That's the path to Chicago scoring points. Lean on the run game, Justin Fields, Khalil Herbert, Roshan Johnson. I agree this is too much for a mediocre Washington team to lay. Remember, they were laying 7 in week 1 against Arizona. That proved to be not a great move. So when this touched up to 7, I love that value too. I would still play at plus 6.5. Chicago's my worst power ratings team, but I think they still have value at the 6.5 number.
All right, great analysis. By the way, I don't mean to stall the show, but so many people have tweeted me, and they just put it in the chat again. And Maestro, I got to give you credit about what happened last night. Real quick, explain what you said and why it was so apropos.
Well, it actually didn't work out, Coach, but I appreciate the tip of the cap. Brad Rogers' crew calls a ton of penalties, and usually those are on the defense, and that enables the offense to keep drives going and score. But the Giants were so pathetic, they couldn't cash in anything. He is definitely an over ref. It didn't happen last night, but our ref article did go 2-1 and is 7-5 now for the season.
Yeah, and if there was ever an over on amount of penalties, that would have hit last night too. So that information is awesome. Knowledge is power. We say it on the show all the time. Nuggets, nuggets, nuggets. Now, let's move to Sunday. And this is an interesting one. The Jags have completely bought in. Their owner loves playing over in London. He always buys in. Usually it's 1 game. Now it's 2 games every year, it seems like, moving forward. And R.J. White, your Buffalo Bills, traveling overseas. Jags have been waiting. They played there last week, laying out the Atlanta Falcons. The number 5.5, total 49. This is a best bet for you.
Yeah, I have the Bills here. They're just playing so well. Aaron Schatz posted his DVOA analysis article that they're the best 3-1 team that he's ever graded. Not quite as good as some 4-0 teams, but even that 3-game stretch that they had over the weeks 2 to 4 is better than the 07 Pat stretch. Their first 3 games. They're just, the last 3 games have been incredibly well played. 48-20 against a team that just scored 70 is awesome. Dominating that team with an elite offense. Jacksonville also off a solid win, but it was against a limited offense in Atlanta, where you know what they're going to do, and you're not worried about their quarterback at all. Buffalo's defense is struggling against the run. That's where Jacksonville should want to attack them, but their run offense is not playing well, and their offensive line is not that good. Buffalo's defense first in interception rate and sack rate. I mean, this could be a game where Jacksonville's offense reverts to what they did in KC, where they couldn't move the ball. They had 3 field goals, and that's it. No touchdowns. I think that's in play for how well this Buffalo defense is playing. And Buffalo has 37-plus points in 3 straights. I don't think the Jacksonville defense is good enough to slow them down. My power rating says Buffalo is 7.5 points better. So on the neutral field, I know Jacksonville is kind of their home away from home, but still a neutral field. Fans will be interested, excited to see these Bills who look like a Super Bowl contender. I think this line should be at least 7. So I got best bet Buffalo minus 5.5.
Who would have thought that a Jets win in week 1? Because I believe this is the reason. You guys may disagree with me, but I think because of what happened in week 1, we're stalling how big the spreads are going to be for the Bills so far. Do you guys? I think that's why, because it should be 7 RJ. Nobody knows more than RJ, but it's still 5.5. I think they're still remembering what happened in week 1. What do you think, Larry?
Yeah, well, the Jets are Josh Allen's kryptonite, and he has not proved that he can handle them. But against everyone else, like RJ said, they are a machine, an unstoppable machine. However, there are some issues, and the reason I'm not willing to lay the points with Buffalo is the spot. They come off a massive win against a division rival, against a team that just scored 70, and they put a beat down on national TV. Now they've got to travel to London, and whereas the Jags are just sitting and waiting for them, that's one issue. And the second thing is the secondary. They lose Tre'Davious White, their best corner by far. Jordan Poyer, their starting safety, did not play. 2 other guys in the secondary left the game, came back. So we'll see if they're able to go this week. But that secondary, to me, RJ, could be an issue. I know the passing game hasn't gotten on track completely, but when you have Ridley, you have Christian Kirk, and maybe Zay Jones comes back, I think the Jags will have success through the air.
Yeah, you might be right. We'll see. They really got up the schneid last week, but this Bills team, they're a different animal. Now, game number 2 on Sunday, but the first one at 1 o'clock is the surprising Houston Texans at the Falcons. Now, Atlanta favored by 1.5, total 41.5. Maestro, let me come right back to you. I also think the sports books are sleeping a little bit on the Texans as well. Your thoughts?
Yeah, you could be right, Coach, because it's been a rapid adjustment from what we thought of the Texans preseason to what we're trying to deal with, what we're seeing right now, which is how well CJ Stroud is playing behind, a vacant offensive line, missing 4 starters. It's been unbelievable. The Falcons were 3.5 on the look ahead. It got under 2.5. It got all the way down to pick 'em. And I just think there is a play here on the Falcons if you want to make the case, because Desmond Ridder, as bad as he is, and he probably should be benched right now for Taylor Heineke, I think Heineke will give them a better chance to win. But he's 4-0 at home, Desmond Ridder. He's 0-4 on the road. That includes the London game. So he has played better at home. And this Falcons defense held those Jags 4.7 yards a play. So this defense is playing a lot better than it did last year. I'm hesitant right now to jump on the Texans bandwagon.
Do you think, RJ, that Maestro is right, that maybe because of where they drafted Desmond Ridder and they said, this is his team, we got to play him, but there is so much heart in that backup, and at some point you got to say the offense just hasn't done anything for 2 straight weeks?
I mean, it's a 3rd-round pick. It's not that big of an investment. Teams have moved on from 2nd-round picks a lot quicker than this. So I don't know that the draft investment really means a great deal. I think they invested, in this particular offense working, and before they pull the plug, they want to give him every chance to succeed. And it's not like their record is terrible, so they can talk themselves into we're winning games anyway. I would lean to the Texans here. The pass offense dominant despite the offensive line injuries, 5th in yards per pass with no interceptions from a rookie quarterback behind that offensive line. It's one of the most incredible things I've seen in the first month of a season ever, probably. Atlanta's defense 7th in yards per pass, but they're only 29th in sack rate. So this is going to be a better matchup for the offensive line than that Steelers matchup supposedly was, which they handled pretty easily. Atlanta's pass game has no juice. Houston defense just shut down another offense that has no passing game juice. So my power ratings say it should be 3. Houston has a large coach and quarterback edge, I think, at this point. I don't want to go with the power ratings here. So if I'm playing this one, it's going to be Houston.
Yeah, me too. I saw an interview with CJ Stroud. I'm so incredibly impressed with this young kid and how he thinks as a quarterback for the Houston Texans. All right, speaking of another rookie quarterback, how about Mr. Young and the Panthers? They're going on the road this week against the Detroit Lions. The Lions, they've looked really, really good lately. They're laying 9 because the Panthers lost by 8 at home to Minnesota, who was 0-3 at the time. So here's the Lions 9. The total is 45. And Maestro, for you, this is a best bet.
Yeah, I'm on the Lions. Got it at 8.5. I'll still lay it at 9. This Panthers team, this is the worst offense in football. Bryce Young is 30th in passer rating. Andy Dalton would give them a better chance to win, but obviously they're trying to develop their rookie quarterback. His first road start was an absolute disaster in Atlanta. This is his 2nd road start. You look at the Lions, Jameson Williams is eligible to come back to add another piece to that offense, which has tremendous balance right now. They smothered the Packers. They had extra rest. I love this team. They're an overtime loss away from being 4-0.
Yeah, that overtime loss, RJ, was to the Seattle Seahawks, who've now won 3 in a row themselves. So they were a very good team as well. Do you think that Detroit, and many of us were wrong, a lot of us were on the Packers, and the Lions went out and said, not this time. How good do you think the Lions are?
Yeah, pretty good team. They 4th on the defense, 4th in yards per play. They've been dominant the last 2 weeks against Atlanta and Green Bay offenses. Green Bay still relatively limited. I know they got a few guys back, but the offensive line was pretty limited there in that game. So we were on Packers early in the week. We expected them to be healthier, especially on that O-line. I don't know what's happening with David Bakhtiari. Carolina's defense, 4th in sack rate. I think they can create some havoc if Taylor Decker is not able to play in this game. So that'll be injury to monitor here. But Carolina's defense, 29th in yards per rush. Detroit can just win by the run game and their defense, because Carolina's offense horrible last week despite the matchup. They played this Minnesota defense I know a lot of people hate. 14. They allowed 14 points, but they couldn't score basically anything. And they're 31st in yards per pass, 31st in yards per play. I don't know how it gets better for this offense until Bryce Young takes a big step forward, or into the play calling duties go to the offensive coordinator, because it just seems like they are completely out of sorts on offense. So I don't know that they'll be able to score enough to keep up with Detroit here if Detroit can put up a big number on a banged up defense. So yeah, I would lean to Detroit as well. My power ratings have it probably at, I think, 11.5 was the number.
Wow, so we're getting a couple points of value here. Plus, this is a very fast track inside in Detroit. That also helps the Lions as well. Their team speed is off the charts. Now, here at the Early Edge, the bread and butter that we have, it's delicious. Not only in the NFL, but also at CBS with college football. and that is all over CBS Sports Network, a full slate of games this Saturday. Now, moving on, the Titans. What were the Titans doing this week? They come off, can't score a touchdown against the Browns, and they come home, and then the Bengals look like they did the week before. I just don't think Joe Burrow is healthy at this point. So the Titans, we'll get to the Bengals in a second, the Titans are traveling to Indianapolis. And when you think about, Maestro, the way the Colts lost, down 20-0 at halftime, they come all the way back. The place is rocking. It goes to overtime after a successful 2-point conversion. But then they don't even get the ball because their defense can't stop Puka Nacua, who's setting all kinds of NFL records for catches and yards. The guy's a stud, and he's a rookie. So the Colts come back. They're laying one against Tennessee. 42.5 is the total. This one is fascinating to me. What about you?
Yeah, this is a game that's very interesting, and the Titans really burned me because I like the Bengals and was so disappointed to see the effort, and the lack of oomph that they had on offense. It was embarrassing, but I think the Titans are going to have success passing the ball because of what happened in that game. The Colts lose another cornerback, Flowers. They lose their best pass rusher, Kwity Paye. He already had 3 sacks and 2 fumble recoveries. They traded Stephon Gilmore. They lost another cornerback to a gambling suspension. So this secondary is a total mess. So I think this is going to be a great game because we know you can throw on Tennessee. And now I believe the Titans are going to throw at will against the Colts. Maybe not to what Matthew Stafford did, but it should be a good offensive day. I'm definitely leaning Titans.
Such a great point by the Maestro, RJ. And this was the first time that I got to see an entire game of Anthony Richardson. I'm a new fan. This kid is a dynamic athlete, can throw the ball, and he has a ton of confidence. Your thoughts on this one?
And he's getting put in a position to succeed. He has a good offensive coaching staff who knows what to do with him. And if you just throw him out there, like apparently another offensive coaching staff we thought was good, the Giants are doing with Daniel Jones with no plan, no nothing, it would look a lot different. So credit to the coaching staff there and credit to him. Everybody thought he was too raw coming in to have success in his rookie year. It has not been the case. I'm interested in this Tennessee offense. They are Jekyll and hiding their way to a 2-2 record. That, as you mentioned, sometimes they look like they are unable to move the ball at all, and Ryan Tannehill needs to retire. And then sometimes they're putting up a bunch of points. Their offensive line is 31st in sack rate, though. Inzi's D has been a solid 9th in that category and 9th in yards per rush. So depending on the injuries, maybe it can be a little bit more pushback. I think it really depends on Tennessee's offensive line. They're going to get depth back with Petit Frere coming back. He was, like Jamison Williams, suspended for the first 6 games. They overturned that and shortened those down a little bit. So he's going to come back and provide depth. I don't know if he's necessarily going to start at right tackle because their fill-in right tackle has been playing really well. But at least the depth will help an offensive line that has struggled. Peter Skoronski, we'll see if he's healthy. He's been missing games, and he's an elite, a high ceiling player at guard. Tennessee's defense, we know, is elite versus the run. We'll see if Jonathan Taylor comes back this week. I know he's returning to practice. I don't know that we'll see him right on the field right away. But that pass offense, as good as Richardson has, look, the pass offense has been a little limited. So I'm not sure the scoring is going to get as much out of hand as Larry is. Indy's defense, if it does, though, they faced 150 plays in back-to-back games because they've had 2 overtime games in a row. And at some point, it's just going to wear on you. So I don't know that they're going to make it through 4 quarters in this one. They might get gassed there. My lean would be to Tennessee because of that, just because I think they can have success in the second half of this game, especially with Derrick Henry pounding the ball.
Great point. They had nothing left in overtime against the Rams. They weren't even close to any of those receivers when they were just marching the ball down the field. It was over when they lost that coin flip. Great point, RJ, by you. Now, this next game is very, very interesting because I thought last night, even though we were all in Seattle, we cashed a bunch of tickets, blah, 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 I couldn't help but think that Brian Daboll completely disrespected Daniel Jones. Now, say what you want about how Daniel Jones played. It was one nasty look and tossing. It was just, I thought it was completely disrespectful. This line, however, is not disrespectful. The Dolphins laying 10.5, total 49.5. The Giants managed all of 3 points last night. And you know, RJ, that the Dolphins, they're going to be ticked off after getting blown out by your Bills. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Miami got blown out. They're still number 1 in yards per play, yards per pass, yards per rush, all by a wide margin. That's how great they've been playing. So the offense should score points. It's not like the Giants defense actually did play pretty well against Seattle. Some of that was Geno Smith was cooking, and then that injury on the sidelines that he had to play through in the second half didn't look like the same quarterback after that. But Miami's defense inconsistent. They can struggle against good offenses. Luckily for them, they are not playing a good offense in this game. I was a big proponent of Brian Daboll coming into the Giants. I was vindicated on that last year. The same coaching staff looks terrible terrible right now. I don't know if they forgot what they were doing over the offseason or whatnot, but the offense is was so bad against a beat up Seattle defense, and just had one trick and just kept on going to it over and over again, and they couldn't solve it, that I don't know how it gets fixed, especially in a week, I mean, the problems run all the way up and down the team and the organization. It seems like that point. I have this line at minus 12 and a half. At these big numbers, I would be worried about a backdoor cover, especially with Miami's defense looking a little shaky. Not the case after watching that Giants offense last night. I think Miami probably wins this game by 14 plus.
And we know, Larry, that after allowing 48, that in their minds, the Dolphins, there's no way they're taking the foot off the gas pedal ever in this game. I agree with RJ. It's going to be 14 or more, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would also lean towards laying the points. If it was 9.5 before what we saw last night, now it's 10.5, a short week against an angry Dolphins team. You know, Tua is under 500 against the spread on the road, but at home, this guy is a covering machine. Teron Armstead will not be back, but maybe Connor Williams is back. Maybe Jalen Phillips is back. But I agree with you guys. Even though Daniel Jones has had that history of being the backdoor cover, especially on the road, they're trying to tempt you with 10.5, and I won't take that bait.
This might, depending on where this lands, might be a nice teaser leg. We'd have to see exactly what the number is. All right, moving on. Now, I heard a long discussion out here on ESPN Radio yesterday, and it was actually surprisingly a good one. And it was, should this be the last year for Bill Belichick and the Patriots? He's been coaching based off of what he did with Tom Brady in the last few years. They haven't been good at all. I mean, at all. So, Maestro, let's start with you. They're laying 1.5 against the Saints. The total is 40. I don't even know who's going to be under center come Sunday for this one for New England, or I guess for the Saints too.
Yeah, either way, I would only look at the under here. The Saints have played 10 straight unders. You know, under Pete Carmichael, they have scored 10 or fewer points 5 times. He just took over as the OC last year. So this is a very limited offense. You're right. Even if, and Derek Carr should not have been out there, 37 attempts to gain 137 passing yards is pretty embarrassing. And the Patriots, we know how limited offensively they are. I think now you see it down to 40. This was 40.5 earlier. I would still go.
Yeah, RJ said in the chat, Jones took so many hits, he needs to be checked out. Whatever checked out means, maybe benched, I don't know, maybe Zappy. What were your thoughts when you watched them not even score a touchdown and the worst loss in the career for Bill Belichick?
Yeah, my thoughts were stop making excuses for this offense. I actually thought they played pretty well in week 1 against the Eagles, overperformed what the stats were in that game. And then people kind of thought they played a lot better in week 3 than I did against the Jets. They controlled that game. They needed a touchdown to a third string tight end off a little bit of a play action misdirection that the Jets didn't expect. And that was really the only offense in the game, really. So I didn't think that offense was playing very well. Been banged up, dealing with some offensive line issues, but this is the DNA of that team with that receiving core. They didn't invest a ton in. The bad news is it doesn't get much easier for that offense now. New Orleans defense is only 1 spot below Dallas in yards per play, but their sack rate is mediocre. So maybe that helps Mac Jones. He's not under siege as much as playing some of these better defenses. And New Orleans offense predictably struggled. I don't know why they played a hurt Carr. I thought there was a downgrade to Jameis from a healthy Carr, but there certainly wouldn't have been a downgrade from the Carr that was on the field that on Sunday. So what's his status? I think we'll have to monitor that to determine what we're going to play in this game. The New England defense has faced some tough tests, but New Orleans offense 29th in yards per play, 32nd in the red zone. They cannot convert touchdowns. We saw it in the first week against the Titans. They couldn't put away the Titans because they were settling for field goals, and it's just continued on from there. My biggest worry about taking New England in this game, which I'm leaning toward doing, is that their defense is dealing with several key injuries. Matthew Judon is going to miss a long time. We don't know how long. Christian Gonzalez, we don't know how long he's going to miss, but he's been as good as Devin Witherspoon was last night. Christian Gonzalez has been playing at a high level as well. So I don't think there was a bad pick between the two of those guys when we were determining who should be the first cornerback drafted. So I'm happy to fade the overreaction to a bad Mac game against a really good defense. I think New England should win this game, but I want to kind of see the state of the defense there and how healthy Carr is going into the week.
Mark writes in the chat, the wise words of the stoic one, and I agree. Now, all of these games, so many of you, and we've been so pleased at the reaction, and we're just going to be growing and growing the relationship, but so many of you haven't yet. So new BetMGM customers, You can sign up today and get $200 in bonus bets. Just place your first wager of at least $10, and you will receive $200 instantly in bonus bets, regardless of your wager's outcome, with bonus code EDGE200. Again, that is EDGE200. Now, next game, last 1 o'clock game on Sunday, and this is always a bitter rivalry, and normally certainly plays into how things end at the end of the season for both of these clubs. But the Ravens, they looked the part this year. The Steelers, the last 2 weeks, and they got blown out by the Texans. Kenny Pickett, what? Total 38.5. Ravens favored by 3 and the hook. Very important on the road at 1 o'clock on a Sunday. So, RJ, where are we going? Can we lay the 3? That seems so much more than 3 to my eye.
Yeah, we even got as high as 4, and I think even 4.5. I wouldn't lay it with the Ravens at that point. Steelers 5-1 straight up against the Ravens in the last 3 years. They were dogs 4 times. I know some of that plays into what quarterback's available for Baltimore, but Pittsburgh dogs 4 times out of the 6, and that one still won 5 of those 6 games, and the one loss was by 2 points. So I have Trubisky as a 2-point downgrade heading into the week. Considering how bad Kenny Pickett's played, it could very well be 0. I mean, it could be a net neutral. It might even be a positive. Baltimore's defense first in yards per play. They played C.J. Stroud in his debut, and that was in Baltimore. And Stroud's been great since that game. But a little bit of a caveat there. Played a hurt Joe Burrow, played 2 backup quarterbacks, Gardner Minshew and Dorian Thompson-Robinson. So a little bit of a easy slate of opponents there. So maybe the Baltimore defense isn't as good as they've looked, but they're probably playing a backup quarterback in this game too. So I don't know that we should expect better from Pittsburgh's offense that has scored 4 touchdowns in 4 games. Pittsburgh defense 26th in yards per play, despite facing the Cleveland, Vegas, and Houston offenses. They got to be better. They should be. Everybody expected them to be better coming into the year. The matchup says this could be a blowout, and the stats kind of say this could be a blowout. Baltimore could run away with it, but history says back Pittsburgh in these type of spots. So I would lean to Pittsburgh at plus 3.5. I would get the 4 if I was going to play it, but not really confident in it.
That is probably the right play, but Jason says the Ravens are a lock. That loss to Indy really woke them up. Larry, do you agree?
This is a hard one because I agree with RJ. The spot is all about Pittsburgh. Mike Tomlin has a dog, and I heard a stat that in this series, when a team is getting more than a field goal, the last 20 times, 18-2 against the spread, that would tell you to play the Steelers. You know, it's an all-in effort at home after being embarrassed on the road. However, the fact that they did not fire Matt Canada has got to just dismay that entire locker room. And I agree with you, RJ. I think Trubisky could actually be an upgrade over the way Kenny Pickett was playing. At least he's mobile out there, you know, in the backfield. However, you lose Pat Freiermuth now. I mean, you've lost Deontay Johnson. So the weapons aren't even there. They can't stop the run without Cam Hayward. So even though the spot is all Steelers, the facts are all Ravens.
Normally when fans complain about a coach, you're like, all right, leave him alone. But, man, I think it was warranted this week. I really, really do. Now, you know, at CBS, we're always trying to make things better, not just in the world of football, but also football. And you know how big Buckets and the Guru and the silent assassin Brant Sutton are to our brand. We've got another brand at CBS. You know I love doing this. Galazzo!
The best way to watch all the Europa League action is back. From lineups to the final whistle, catch every goal from every match. The Europa League Galazzo Show on CBS Sports Network and streaming live on Paramount+.
Do you know how much money I would pay to have RJ do what I just did? Oh, my. That would be the greatest moment in early Edge history. But we'll save that for a really special time. But Galazzo, oh, that'd be amazing. That would be amazing. All right. So, RJ, I'm going to start right there with you because last week, the world was on the Philadelphia Eagles. And I even paid the juice to bring the number down to 7. So you can imagine how happy I was with A.J. Brown because he had to make it all about himself after the go-ahead touchdown that would have pushed. He gave up 15 yards, and they scored with no time left to go to overtime. Basically, no time left. So the Eagles, but don't worry, he didn't even care over on the bench. He was still high-fiving, didn't care what was going on the field. It really ticked me off. So this week, the Eagles are going on the road. They're laying 4.5 against a Rams team that you take that sandwich game out of it. They've played really, really good. And last week in the first half played fantastic. Now, how healthy is Matthew Stafford going to be? That remains the question. RJ, start us off on this one.
Yeah, it's hard to lay points against this Rams team. It's been frisky, scoring a ton of points and looking pretty solid. Philly 4-0, but it feels like they've yet to hit their stride. Bad penalties in that game against Washington, especially on third down. As somebody who had Philly, I just kept on pulling my hair out every time they committed a bad penalty on third down, extending the drives. I mean, they had a plus 1.3 yard per play margin in that game, completely outplayed Washington, and those penalties just kept them in it. Rams defense faced a decimated Indy offensive line last week, a lot worse than I think I gave it credit for going into that game. This is going to be a much tougher test, one of the best offensive lines in the league here. Look ahead was Philly -6. So this comes down. It was and it's actually 4 in a lot of spots. I think 3.5 might end up getting on the board because I know people want to back the Rams. And I'm not worried about Philly. It seems like the market's a little bit more worried about Philly than I am right now. San Francisco was -7 at the Rams in week 2. Should have covered that game. That meaningless field goal at the end to make it a push. I'm sure everybody remembers that. Philly is in that same tier, maybe slightly below San Francisco, but I think they're right there. So I don't see why this line isn't 6 or 7. I'm looking to play Philly. I just need to get at least a 4, and I'm going to probably hold out hope and see if we can get a 3.5.
Okay, very, very good. I love that analysis because sometimes I fall into the trap, Maestro, of overreacting myself. What do you think about this matchup?
Yeah, I'm with RJ in terms of looking for a way to play Philly. I'm hoping the number comes down. Matthew Stafford, it's a deep it's a hip bruise, and he's still in pain. He's still sore, and Sean McVay saying all the right things that he's going to be out there. But let's see how the week goes. I mean, we've seen this transpire in different ways with Matthew Stafford, and he's taken quite a beating, and he has an unbelievable load on his shoulders as the quarterback of this team. And Cooper Kupp could come back. That would be a big boost to the offense. But yeah, up front on both sides of the line of scrimmage, I think this is a mismatch, and I'm looking to lay it with Philly.
All right. Maybe the way the Rams threw the ball brought this number down. Maybe it'll be, I don't know, but I love the Eagles this week. Now, this next game involves maybe the biggest surprise on the field in the NFL this season. They haven't necessarily won all the games, but they've looked really good. I'm talking about not Cincinnati. I'm talking about the Arizona Cardinals, who, by the way, Zach Ertz, he's dead to me. He cost myself a cover, dropping a touchdown pass with 8 seconds to go. But I digress. Now, the Cardinals had it 21-16 against the 49ers in the third quarter until it got away from them. So, RJ, how in the world are the Cincinnati Bengals laying 3 this week?
Because the look ahead was -7, and it's just you're not going to get even that's a huge move from the look ahead, and you typically don't see unless you're dealing with an injury, and who knows, maybe Burrow isn't playing this game. That move seems fair with Cincy's offensive issues. Cincy looks like the team everybody expected Arizona was going to be hitting into the year, just cannot move the ball at all. They rank last with just 4 yards per play. That's Cincinnati's offense. That's the Joe Burrow Super Bowl contending Cincinnati Bengals. Cannot throw downfield, I guess because of Burrow's injuries. T. Higgins can't hold on to a pass to save his life. Arizona's defense is 29th in yards per play and yards per pass. So this should be a matchup that Burrow can bounce back if he's healthy and if there's not some underlying issues there. Arizona's offense 9th in yards per play, 2nd in yards per run. That's despite facing Dallas and San Francisco in their first 4 games. Offense is playing really well, much better than anybody could have possibly imagined, especially considering their head coaching hires on the defensive side. And it's not like a Shane Steichen situation where you're okay, he can generate some things and make the offense look good. They're doing this with a replacement level quarterback they acquired just before the beginning of the season, and they're top 10 in yards per play. Cincy's defense 30th in yards per run. I think the formula is there for Arizona's offense to have success. I want to fade the big look ahead move. I want to say 7's closer to the right number from the look ahead. I just can't trust Cincy right now, so I'm going to lean Cincy. If it gets under 3, I might think about it, but I don't want to play them.
I was going through a few games today, and I have the Arizona Cardinals as one of my 5 that I'm looking at for my TikTok lock of the week. So that's how much I like the Cardinals. But now I listen to RJ, and I may have to just scratch that game off my board for a lock of the week. I still may play, maybe not my lock, Maestro. What do you think about that?
Well, I believe your lock is 3-1 so far on TikTok, so nice job there. I'm going to look at the over here because the Bengals defense has been almost as disappointing as their offense. I do think their offense will wake up. It's a great matchup, and Joe Burrow is going to start. So I think they will get it going. Not sure if T. Higgins is going to play, but he's been playing so badly, like RJ said, it may not be a downgrade with the rib injury. And Josh Dobbs, I mean, what can you say? This guy's been so impressive. James Conner running hard. So, yeah, I'm going to look at the over in this one.
All right. And the next one, this was kind of your team that surprised everybody. And I don't even know the U that I'm using, but the Denver Broncos. My goodness. They're at home. They're going to lay 1.5 against the Jets team that if you watch the post-game press conference, Larry, Robert Saleh, the head coach of the Jets, you would have thought that he was talking about a Little League game. He's like, man, I like that little Zach Wilson. He showed me today that he belongs out here. He really belongs playing. I mean, what are we talking about? This is the NFL. You either can play or you cannot play. So the Jets coming off a hard-fought loss. By the way, Patrick Mahomes, you're still my guy, even though you cost me the bet. But do you think the Jets found something, and I'm the idiot, about Zach Wilson?
The temptation in terms of what everyone is going to do entering this game, and I think RJ is on that side, is to bet the Jets because they obviously have a much, much better defense, and Zach Wilson showed some great strides in prime time. I mean, he was getting rid of the ball, and he was getting it to Garrett Wilson, which is where it needs to go, and they do have a great running back in Breece Hall, so I think people are going to be on the Jets. The Broncos have been such a disaster defensively, the worst defense, I believe, in history through 4 games. However, I'm not going to be on that side. I believe that comeback, that down 28-7, I know it was against the Bears, that is the kind of thing that can change the entire season for the Broncos. And Russell Wilson is tied with Josh Allen right now in passer rating. He is playing great football. This offense is playing well. Number 3 in passer rating. And if you think about that week 1 opener where they lost to the Raiders, they missed a field goal, they missed an extra point. This team could be 2-2. We wouldn't be thinking about them as the laughing stock that right now a lot of people think them to be. So I think at home, they're going to get this done against the New York Jets.
That was exactly the question, RJ, I was going to ask you. How much do you think a win and winning it that way can help the confidence for the Denver Broncos?
Well, we see how much magic it played into the New York Giants, who were getting their butts kicked by the Cardinals, came back and won that game, and then extrapolated that forward to 2 impressive wins over the last 2 weeks and look like a team on the rise here. Of course, that's not the case. The Giants are terrible. But we'll see if Denver can follow the script that Larry's laying out. That offense only had 311 yards against brutalized Chicago secondary. And they were very quiet until being down 28-7, a comeback that was facilitated by a fumble return touchdown, something you can't count on a lot of the time. Probably lucky to win that game. The underlying stats say Denver's offense is very good. I look at them play. They seem too inconsistent to me. I know they're scoring a decent amount of points, but it just seems like they need everything to go right for these drives to generate these points. And considering that their defense, everything's going to go wrong on the defensive side, it's just a high wire act. They cannot keep up. The Jets defense also inconsistent after having high expectations, but they were solid against Kansas City. Wilson coming off that solid game too, like you said, facing this historically bad defense. I want to fade Denver anytime they're laying points, considering how bad they've looked. And I'm going to do it here. So I like Jets, but get the 2.5 instead of the 1.5.
Thank goodness that we have one game opposite the Jets Broncos on Sunday at 4:25 Eastern time. And it's my squad. It's a Kansas City Chiefs. And there's a lot to unpack here. The Minnesota Vikings, they went on the road last week to Carolina, and they got the job done, 21-13, very workmanlike. Not impressive, but workmanlike. The Chiefs, well, Patrick Mahomes, that may be the worst I've ever seen him play after being up 17-0. Larry, clearly his ankle is not healthy when you watch him run. But they're still figuring out a way to win ball games. But they're laying 5.5. The total, a robust for this game, at 53. Your thoughts?
My thoughts are to lean towards the points here with the Vikings, as bad as they've been. And the turnovers are just, so egregious week after week after week, the turnovers that this team commits. But offensively, they still have a ton of talent. This is a situation where I see the Chiefs being up 10 and Kirk Cousins driving the ball down the field. And it probably comes down to 1 or 2 plays in the end zone to get the backdoor cover.
My gut still hurts, RJ, from if it would have been a tie ball game, okay, I get it. But to not go up 2 scores and slide at the 1, yes, it was the right play. But this is 2023, and sports betting's in play. So it was not the right play. But they got it done, 3-1. But what do you make of the Chiefs?
Yeah, Mahomes threw some bad picks against the Jets. Still had 6.1 yards per play. The offense was executing well, except for those bad picks. So if he can erase those very Zach Wilson-like picks, then I think he has a future in this league. Patrick Mahomes. Minnesota's offense has been better in yards per play and on season, but the defense, than the Jets. But the Kansas City defense 5th in yards per pass. They can shut them down a little bit, I think, in this game. Minnesota's defense, a surprising 10th in yards per play. Being aggressive has helped them. I don't think it's going to help him against Patrick Mahomes. We know how he is if you get aggressive with him. So if Flores, if he's bringing that pressure again, I think Kansas City could put up a huge number in this game. I would take the points too. I like Larry's angle of counting on that backdoor cover from Kirk Cousins. We've seen it kind of fail early in the season. They haven't been able to execute near the goal line, have some turnover issues in these games. But it just seems like this game where Chiefs will be up by 10 or 11 and Vikings will cut it to 4 or 5 and we get the cover there.
All right. Very good. Well, guess what? I don't know how we're going to do it, but just the two of us will finish this show with the final two games. Some tech issues with Larry's camera and his Wi-Fi. And it's unfortunate because I guarantee you he had his thoughts on perhaps what should be on paper, RJ, the best game of the week. The Cowboys, and you take the Arizona game out of it. The other three games, they've been dominant. They've looked amazing. They've looked as good as San Francisco and much better than the Eagles. 49ers, they simply look like the best team in the league. They're laying 3.5. The total is 45. This is Sunday Night Football, a national TV audience. You know San Francisco is going to want to show out.
Yeah, I can argue against myself if you want. I can take both sides of this, but
please do. Please do.
But I think I'm on the 49ers. I disagree that Dallas take out that game and they've been playing awesome. Their scoreboard looks like they've been playing awesome. With the defense scores a touchdown for every 2 the offense scores. That's going to help you look very good on the offensive on the scoreboard. But San Francisco dominating on both sides of the ball. Dallas being carried by their pass defense, very elite. Lost a big piece heading into that Cardinals game. Rebounded last week, but their defense is just 27th in yards per rush. So this is another big game coming for Christian McCaffrey in this game. That I don't know if they're able to stop him. San Francisco's offense just 14th in sack rate, but they will win if they keep Purdy clean here. And so it remains to be seen if they can do that against this elite defense. Dallas's offense averaging those 2 touchdowns per game to the defensive one. Like I said, they're first on third downs on offense, but they're 30th in the red zone. And in a game again on the road against a team with a good home field advantage, field goals are not going to be enough to cover here because the 49ers are going to score their points. We've seen them putting up 30 routinely. So we'll see if they can do that against this defense. But I would lay it. It was 3 on the look ahead. I thought when we gave out the line as the look ahead number on the Sunday show, we said this is our look ahead line. San Francisco -3. It's going to go up from here. 3.5 now. I expect it to keep going up. So I would lock it in if you don't think you're going to get the 3.
And I told you there was no way that Larry was going to let this game bypass without putting in his 2 cents. And look who is back. Quickly, Maestro, your thoughts.
Yeah, it wasn't tech issues. It was my issue. I did it to myself, but now I'm back. And I'm with RJ. I'm going to lay the points here, looking to hopefully get it at a field goal because of that 49ers rushing attack, which is so unstoppable against the Dallas team, giving up 4.6 yards a carry and got absolutely gashed on the ground by Arizona. And also the Cowboys' problems on the offensive line. I think this is a matchup where you could see those, starting to hurt them. We didn't see that last week, obviously, against the Patriots. And I think their Cowboys are going to struggle in the red zone. I think Dak is going to throw, one big pick in this one. And I mean, what can you say about Brock Purdy at home and in the regular season? Unstoppable, untouchable, unbeatable so far.
And one thing to notice, because obviously we're a sports betting brand, because we talked about this a lot on Primetime Early Edge on Monday night, how players don't care about the point spreads, coaches don't care about this point spread. I would contend, however, that Kyle Shanahan likes to take care of his fan base because he knows a lot of them bet on their team, and he could have knelt the ball out on Sunday up 12. He decided to score instead and go up 19 to cover the spread. Now, it may not have been for bettors, but he could have knelt, and he chose not to. So keep that in mind when maybe this hook is still out there, and you never know. You never know. I just thought it was interesting to notice that as I was on the opposite side of that game. All right, as good as Sunday Night Football should be, Monday Night Football, not so much. 2 teams that laid an absolute egg last week. Now, if you watched my What Are You Doing segment on social media yesterday posted, then you know the Raiders were a part of that as they were allowed to come back because Brandon Staley simply does know how to be a head coach. So they're at home, but they're the underdog. Packers -2.5. They laid an egg against the Detroit Lions. But Jordan Love, at times this year, he's looked very, very good. So, RJ, what do you make of the Packers going on the road to Las Vegas and still laying points?
Yeah, just like the Saints and Patriots game, injuries are going to be key to monitor here. Packers starting to get healthy at the skill positions with Christian Watson and Aaron Jones back, but Aaron Jones didn't look like his full self in that Thursday game. Offensive line is still going to be an issue for the Packers. It looks like we don't know when David Bakhtiari is coming back. We'll see about Elton Jenkins. But we're monitoring those injuries there. And then the Raiders side, is Jimmy Garoppolo going to be able to come back? Because Aiden O'Connell had some flashes, but he did not look like he's ready for prime time in that game last week. The Vegas pass offense has been solid when it avoids interceptions, 32nd in interception rate. So don't throw those picks, and they're actually pretty good. But the rush offense has been awful, and they need to excel in this spot because the Packers' rush defense has not been very good. The Packers' offense has an opportunity here too, but the offense needs to get healthy. Hopefully the extra rest coming off the Thursday game will help. And, Vegas, despite those rookie QB struggles, they nearly tied it at the game at the end for the Chargers. Of course, the Chargers handed them that opportunity for whatever reason, but Vegas still nearly got it done. So if Garoppolo's back, I think Vegas can get the win. I think they'll be the value here. But once he is ruled back in, this game probably comes down to pick him anyway. So if you see that news trending toward him being in, I would try to get the +2.5 or +2, whatever available right now.
And that's a great point. And the thing about it, because we'd be roasting the Chargers if they didn't have a bye week this week, but they really didn't do any other teams any favors, Maestro, because what they did in the second half, they decided, you know what, we're up 17. Let's play prevent defense from the start of the third quarter, and they gave confidence to the rookie quarterback. And then by the fourth quarter, he looked like the best quarterback on the entire field, better than Justin Herbert. How much do you think the way he played in the second half will help this week?
Well, it'll help if he's going to be the starter, which we don't know. And I just think the Packers, this is a great spot. This is a bye week, basically. They played on a Thursday. Now they're playing on a Monday. Jair Alexander is back at practice. That's huge. When you're facing Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers, now you have one of the top corners in all of football. The offensive guys should be healthier. And the way the Raiders play defense, they don't put any pressure on you. They don't jam you. They let you complete and dink and dunk your way. That is going to be great for this Packers offense, which hasn't had any room. It got smothered by the Lions. I'm looking at the Packers here. This is a Raiders team. They got that one win against the Broncos. But since then, Josh McDaniels, not putting it together. I like the coaching edge for Green Bay as well with Matt LaFleur.
No question about that. Go ahead.
I want to point out real quick, it's actually the third week in a row that we've had that Thursday to Monday pseudo bye week. We had the Eagles in week 2 to week 3, and they looked very good in that game against the Buccaneers, a team they were much better than. We had the Giants week 3 to week 4 looked very bad last night. So I don't know that we can pull too much out of that. Which bucket do the Packers fit in? Probably more of the Giants side at this point with how the offenses looked. Not nearly as bad, but I wouldn't classify them as an Eagles type of team that can dominate an inferior opponent here.
I love ending the show on a Chick-fil-A nugget from RJ. Now, quickly, only 3 best bets for the show this week. So quickly, gentlemen, take me through them. RJ, let's start with you.
I have the Bills -5.5 in London on a neutral field. I think the game should be at least 7. The Jaguars are not as good as people thought before the season. The Bills look like the best team in the league through at least over the last 3 weeks, and we know they always have trouble with the Jets.
Maestro.
I'm going to take the Bears and the points against the Commanders, who've given up 33 or more points in 3 straight games. They just played an overtime game. Their defense was on the field for nearly 80 plays, and I think Justin Fields can at least get us through the back door on Thursday Night Football. And then I expect a beatdown in Detroit on Sunday. The Panthers have the worst offense in football. Bryce Young is the 30th rated quarterback right now, doesn't have a lot of the weapons. The Lions are clicking both sides of the ball. They can run it, they can throw it, and Jameson Williams could come back. This is going to be a double-digit victory.
This might end up being my lock of the week. I don't know. I still have a few to choose from, but I got to record it on Wednesday for those of you watching live on Tuesday, so look for that on social media. By the way, a big-time thank you to everybody watching right now, and if you know anybody, because we got all of our numbers yesterday, and courtesy of all of you, we had the biggest month, and it wasn't close on social media that we've ever had at SportsLine and the Early Edge, and we can't do it without all of you. Maestro, RJ, another banger job. You guys are the absolute very best. So we went through every single game. Remember, 4 teams are on a bye this week. We'll be back live tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, and then at 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday, our college football weekly mega preview. That's all that needs to be said, because there's only one thing left to do. And I believe you all know what that is. You've got your marching orders. Let's take all of these NFL tickets and early look straight to the pay window. For my entire crew, love them all. Maestro, the stoic one, RJ White, Snake always behind the scenes on the ones and the twos. I am simply the coach trying to keep this train on said track. We grind for you so we can win with you. It's truly what we're all about right here at the Early Edge. Good luck.